let's do a quick garden tour since we missed most of July, I think, and now we're in the first week of August, and it's early morning. It's about 6:15, so the lighting is really good. There's not as much traffic on the road, so I thought I might as well get this front garden tour in. So you can see this is the new bed I put in this year. And it's doing great. I've got this lilac on standard. I've underplanted with some cosmos, some rose campion. Isn't that beautiful, Cosmo? Bees love this one. It's a vibrant rose campion with that blue-gray foliage I love. Got some lavender in the front. This one is doing the best, and it looks like the lavender is pretty much spent, but there are some new buds coming, which is nice. And then I've got this Amsonia. I put 2 Amsonia in here as well for spring interest. In the spring it'll have beautiful blue flowers. I've also got some lilies in here, which are spent now, but they did bloom for me. And I've got a Boscabel rose here, which is kind of done its bloom, but I see there is a bud in there. And swinging around, because this is along the driveway of my neighbor and it's like a hot, dry area, I put in a yarrow there, and you can see that it's doing really well. Blooms are mostly spent, but there is a fresher bloom down here, this one. I've also got this Miss Sayori Hydrangea, which is just starting to bloom. And that's great because I didn't think it was going to bloom this year. So it's really nice to see that because it was just transplanted. I love the foliage on this hydrangea, and the blooms are just spectacular. So I've got 2 there, and I'm hoping it's just going to do great in this spot over time. Also have a hellebore here and a little Cosmo there. And it's just under this tree here, and that's why it's hot and dry from the sidewalk, but also gets some shade in the later part of the day. And this is this lilac's first year here, and it's looking like it's a little chlorotic, so I'm hoping it can recover from this. I'm gonna fertilize it and try to just baby it a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on, if it's too little water, too much water, not enough nutrients, but something I'm gonna keep an eye on. So that's this front garden bed. And we have our little garden bed here, which I can show you. And let's go start here. So here we have a yew, which is the anchor of this bed, and it's been here a very long time. It's doing well. We have I think it's a mountain fire pieris, which is a beautiful shrub. It has beautiful foliage colors and blooms in spring. We have it underplanted with a rhododendron, which is beautiful pale yellow, buttery yellow flowers in the spring. And then we have more of that yarrow, which I showed you up front. So we have a patch of it. It's taken over here, this little spot. I might kind of divide it. I have a fellow gardener who wanted to take some divisions, so I'm gonna give her some. Just swinging along here, we have another mountain fire pieris, I believe. We have this Cosmo, which self-seeded itself. Here we have a dahlia. This was my first dahlia to bloom. And you can see it's been blooming for a while, but this one's called Boom Boom White. There's another bud, another flower here coming. It's beautiful. I popped in some bubblegum here, Supertunia. In here I've got some Japanese anemone, some catmint, which is just newly planted, so it needs a little while to get established. Got some pentas here. This is a salvia. I think it's the crystal blue or perfect profusion actually. I think it's perfect profusion. That's right. And then I've got some mahogany monster. And then I just have it this underplanted here. This is a pierce, which I limbed up into tree form, thinking I could plant under it, but you can see this is a very vigorous plant because you can see how it's growing from the base again. I did put some pruning paint on the cuts, but it's just growing from the base. So it definitely wants to live. So I might have to relocate that or move it or give it away or something. I've got an endless illumination browalia there, and I've got some Angelina stonecrop right here. I did put in a thalictrum, which is this plant here. That's doing well. Just gonna back up here. So these are some Feather Falls carex, which I had one pot and I divided it into 3, and I'm happy to see that this year they are getting established and growing. They're looking really nice. So I'm glad I put those in there. They survived. And I have some annuals in the front here. So these white ones are doing really well. So they are a type of alyssum. So they are the Proven Winners Snow Princess alyssum, and I love them. They are doing so great. They have such a nice habit. And actually, I had popped in the pentas in between. The pentas is the white star-shaped flower here. This one is probably a good example of it. But you can see that they're much smaller than the alyssum. So I think in the future I would forego the pentas in favor of the alyssum. And just swinging along here, we have a bunch of heuchera, we have coral bells in here, we have some gracewort lithodaria sprinkled throughout. So they're out of bloom right now. So I'll just give you the highlights, or this tour is going to be really long. There's little Cosmo popped in there. I've got underplantings of lamium. And basically, this is a dwarf birch tree. It's a weeping birch, as you can see. And it has put on quite a bit of growth this summer. And because of that, this spot, it was initially getting too much sun down here, but for the coral bells. But what happened is, like, now that the dwarf birch has kind of grown in, it's giving a little bit more protection from the sun. So that's good for my dark heuchera, which are, I think they're wild berry or wild rose. So they were getting scorched, but now they're looking much, much better. But on the other hand, you know, this is my other dahlia, so my dahlias need sun. So, and here's some more of the bubblegum, which I don't fertilize very regularly, and, you know, just water when I can. So they're probably not as striking as other ones. But overall, pretty happy with this bed. And swinging around, I've got some violet ice superbena here I popped in, and I really love this carpet of thyme. So that's blooming English thyme. The pollinators just went crazy over that, and I wanted this to be a ground cover and kind of surround. This used to be a Pugster blue butterfly bush, and as you can see, it died. It didn't come back. None of mine did, really, so disappointing. But this was supposed to come out, and it was supposed to be surrounded by this sea of English thyme. So I have to replace that, and I haven't decided what I'm going to do there yet. But moving along, I do have this denim and lace Russian sage here. I like that color. It's a very nice contrasting color. So we're going to see what that does, because it's kind of struggled and it's really small. So we'll see how it does. I want it to kind of take over. I did put in some annuals here. So we have I think this might be a Supertunia Velvet. Can't really recall. Quite a bit of weeds in this bed. Haven't had a chance to weed it. Here we have I think this is a banana cream, not the improved version. Could use some deadheading. I have some stonecrop here along the side of the driveway, which is a tough spot, and it's really nice to have that because it's just kind of a self-sufficient plant. Just kind of has these lovely blooms, and you can see they're kind of gone over, but they were nice when they were blooming. Pretty pink flowers, and that just kind of doesn't need a lot of water, you know, so it's a very nice sturdy plant. I've got some lavender here, which, you know, the blooms are pretty much spent, but like the other one, they are throwing up new shoots, new buds forming here. I think this is a persimmon. And this is my Hydrangea standard, which is kind of the star of the show in this little garden bed. Look at these gorgeous blooms. And one thing that this has done, this is a Pinky Winky, and you can see it has like more reddish stems. And I have a clematis growing throughout it. And this is, I think it's a Comtesse de Bouchard. I must be butchering that. Isn't that pretty? It blooms at the same time as this hydrangea. Let me just back up to show you that beautiful hydrangea on standard. Looks like it's leaning a little bit, so I'll have to stake it. But the clematis, this is a bloom of the clematis, it's got no signs of slowing down, which is amazing. So many buds. And this hydrangea, it's more open-faced, so it's really amazing for the pollinators. They love it. Isn't that such a beautiful hydrangea? And you can see it transforms into this pink color from this creamy white. So it starts off with this more white, and then it transforms into the pink. And it starts off as this kind of chartreusey green. One thing that's new with this hydrangea this year is that it's kind of lopsided, and all the blooms are kind of on this side, and there's very few on the back side, which it's never done that in past years, so I'm not sure what's going on there, because that other side is more sun, but this side has always bloomed in the past as well, so I'm not sure what's going on. But that's okay, and I will probably be resetting this in the fall when it's deciduous and bloomed out, and kind of fixing that one. But definitely the star of the show is front garden bed is right here with this Pinky Winky hydrangea and gorgeous clematis. And in the front driveway in the front right corner, we have this little garden bed. We have a boxwood that's kind of the anchor of the bed. We also have this wildberry echinacea or coneflower, which is doing fabulous. And we have a honeysuckle here and one in the corner there. This one's a little bit more vigorous, but the hummingbirds love this one. I'm not the biggest fan of honeysuckle because it just looks really messy. The flowers fade and then they look like this. But they also produce these red berries, which are cute. But the leaves just end up looking kind of like this, you know? They don't look great. So some of them look nice, but then a lot of them turn up like this. So I'm not the biggest fan of this plant, but I didn't plant it. And it has this gorgeous scent at nighttime, and the hummingbirds love it, so I'm not messing with it, but I do give it a really hard cut back, and then it flushes out again. I love having the color of this coneflower. Even though it's late summer blooming, it just provides a lot of interest. I've also got a columbine back here, which is good spring interest. And I have there's our seed pods up here, and I'm gonna let that self-seed. This is a seed pod. These are all seed pods. I'm just gonna let that self-seed as it wishes. So you can see, oh, there goes some seeds. Those are all seeds, so yep, just let them go. And then whatever it volunteers, that's great. And then I have in this is a David Austin Crown Princess Margareta. It bloomed beautifully for me, and now it's in a dormant period right now. It's been deadheaded, and I see some hips forming. So we'll see. I don't know if it's gonna bloom again or not, but I don't see any buds right now. But on this obelisk, I have a Jackmanii clematis, and it's mostly bloomed out. These are the seed heads, and you can see kind of the faded flowers. They're this deep purple color, which look really beautiful next to this Crown Princess Margareta rose, which is like an apricot, light apricot color. And then just swinging around, Our lavender was glorious, and you can see it's kind of all faded now. It could probably benefit from a cutback. You can cut back lavender in fall, spring, there's lots of time to do it, so that's just leaving it for now. Here is a reblooming lilac. This is a bloomerang lilac, and it's kind of filled in this area here. It's taken up a lot of space, so it's kind of swallowed what I've put underplanted here, which is a peony. And I think that's either a bowl of beauty or a Hawaiian coral charm, but that clearly will have to move because that did not bloom this year. It just doesn't get sufficient sunlight with this lilac here. I have an Alba bleeding heart, which you can see is totally faded to yellow and is gonna disappear and just come back next year. And then here is that honeysuckle in the corner, which I saw a hummingbird on it this morning. And there's not really a scent during the day, but in the evening it has a beautiful scent. So that's the front garden bed. I almost forgot, we have this front little skinny narrow bed in front of the house. Right here we have our purple pillar hibiscus, which I'm going to do a separate video on, and you can see how it's gotten so much growth. It's very tall. It's taller than I am at the tallest point, and I'm 5'8.5", and you can see it's all budded up. So I really hope it blooms soon because we're already in the first week of August, and that's the one downside of this plant, is that you have to wait so long for it to bloom. I've got it underplanted with these snow crystal alyssum, which I'm very happy with. I had dotted them on the front, and they've now kind of filled out, and they're looking just beautiful. Cosmos always self-seed in this bed, and I let them go because I love that look. And I did cut these, I think they were Globe Master alliums or Gladiator, can't remember, the smaller one of the two, but I had cut them at the base and then just dug them in here because I didn't want the energy taken away from the bulb to produce seed. And you can see that the seeds have just developed on their own even when they were detached from the bulb. So that's very interesting. I think these have just like popped, these can just be shaken out and popped out. I don't know if that's really feasible to grow alliums that way because they are grown from bulbs, but I thought that was very interesting. These didn't have the seeds showing when I popped them in here, but now you can see there's seeds all over it. So I'm gonna leave those. And I do have a dahlia popped in here, but I don't know, I might not get enough sun in here, so those are in there. I don't know if they're gonna bloom, we'll see. This is a very tall rose. This is your traditional long-stemmed rose, and it's like a cutting rose. So you can see it has like very, very long stems with a single bloom. I'm not sure what it is called, but it's got a very, very deep red color. So beautiful. I'm not actually the biggest fan of this rose, but again, I didn't plant it, and you know, my mom loves roses, so she'd be very upset if I took that out. And then moving along, we have this other rose, which is a very nice pink color. And again, this was not my favorite rose because it was not blooming the most, but you can see like it's trying to prove me wrong, because I was like gonna replace this with a Queen of Sweden, and now it's just decided to fight for its life and put on a beautiful show. So really gorgeous color, this rose. And I don't know the name. These ones are in the front. I didn't plant, my mom planted those. Let's see, we have a little fly here. And it's amazing what a little fertilizer and deadheading will do for a rose. There's some phlox down here as well, just as a ground cover. That's there every year. This is my other dahlia, which doesn't look like it's blooming anytime soon, unfortunately. And then last but not least, we have the snow crystal alyssum, and then we have this tall rose here, which is another type of red rose, but these blooms are much more fluffy kind of type of flower, and the blooms tend to be bigger. So that one is a nice tall rose. Needs a little bit of deadheading, but it is pretty healthy, nice color. And that is the front garden. And here we are at the back side of this dwarf weeping birch tree. And I have a wee white hydrangea here. I've got a box of it here. I have a salvia that I deadheaded, and I was hoping for a second flush, but not successful to date anyways. I've got some pollinators in here in a more shaded area. This is a little Shadowland wee hosta, which was just roots, and I wasn't sure if it was going to survive, but it seems to be thriving there. Hopefully it'll get bigger. Here's my Thalictrum, and then there's the Browalia, Endless Illumination, and then we're just gonna go swing around to the backyard. And just to advise everyone, this is not our wall, this is our neighbor's wall, so I can't do anything about that. So just FYI, you know, there's Robbie on his YouTube channel, Visit Our Garden. He was always saying, not my rooster, because the neighbor's rooster is always crowing. It's so funny. And yeah, my equivalent is, it's not my wall. So eventually, hopefully it'll get replaced. So just coming into the backyard, we have this little garden bed here, which has a Japanese bloodgood maple, which is looking gorgeous. It's underplanted with 4 hostas. They're in various stages of bloom right now, and they're all lavender colored blooms, which is just a coincidence, but I love these hostas. I actually divided this one and earlier this spring, and you can see that's why it's a little bit smaller, but the other 2 are just massive and probably could use with some dividing. Believe it or not, this is a wild rose heuchera, but there's also a heuchera in there. I think it's a peachberry ice, and it's just, you can't see it because it's been swallowed up. But and then I think there's also some cutting edge foam flower in there, which has also been planted here and here, which you can't really see. But just a gorgeous Japanese maple in this part sun location. And just swinging around. So I planted up this little trench. Again, it's not my part of the yard, it's actually our neighbor's, but I just don't want to see kind of this ugly blank space. So I just took it upon myself and threw some drought tolerant plantings in there. So you can see echinacea, which are doing really well. And there's also some cosmos. So these are cosmos here. This is a cosmo, you can tell by its ferny texture. Here we have some echinacea. This might be white swan or powwow white. Not really sure, I can't remember. But cosmos are annuals and they self-seed prolifically, so it's kind of perfect for this kind of temporary garden bed. And this is another wild berry. Really like that deep berry color there. Then we have some, I put in some ajuga. This is the burgundy glow ajuga. I was hoping I would just kind of cover it out because this bed is full of weeds. So I was hoping to just choke them out. Haven't been very successful. And this is the Cheyenne Sky. Isn't that beautiful? It's like a gorgeous sunset-y color. So here's some up close. This ajuga is blooming, and it usually blooms in spring, so that's interesting. So backing up, this is a rhododendron. Actually, I think it's an azalea. It has like bright fuchsia pink flowers in the spring. It's a really nice pop of color. This is a very wet area, so I've got 2 willows in that little garden bed here. This is a divided hosta from the one I showed you. I'm hoping it'll establish and kind of grow there. I've got these, like I said, I'm thinking of these as temporary plantings because the wall is going to have to be repaired and replaced, but this hosta is doing very well here. This is a red twig dogwood, and you can see how big it's gotten. Isn't that beautiful? Great for a boggy, wet area. And I can show you, it gets these white blooms, which then turn to these berries. So interesting. And then of course it's known for these red twigs in winter. vibrant red in winter. So winter interest for sure. And just swinging over, I have this elderberry here, which is a black lace elderberry, and it hasn't grown that much, stayed relatively small, so not a lot of blooms on there. Got the drinking gourd hosta down here, and this is the other willow. This is the gracewort lithodaria, which is blooming, and usually it blooms early spring. It's beautiful little, cute little dainty blue flowers of the gracewort lithodaria. This is a pink fizz Heucherella, and you can see like here is the ajuga bloom here, and of course battling all the weeds. So you can see this is infested with weeds because it was just untouched for so long. So more of the wild berry, more of the white echinacea, and then this one I think was golden sombrero, something like this. Can't remember the exact name, but yeah, behind here I've got this, behind this willow I've got this Japanese painted fern and another hosta. I do have a weigela back there behind my generous gardener rose. So this garden bed is dominated by the generous gardener rose, which I was going to train along the fence. And then I have got this bobo hydrangea, which is doing fabulous. And there's quite a few hostas in here because it is a very wet area. In off season when it's raining, it's all the rain kind of collects in here. And I've got this ajuga, which is not burgundy glow. It's looks like bronze or chocolate chip, but I didn't buy that variety, so must have gotten in there somehow, but it's kind of spreading, taking over. This is Saturn coral bells. I did have some impatiens, which are doing okay. I'm surprised they haven't gotten bigger at this point because I was expecting them to kind of spread out in this bed. I've got a anemone, a fall blooming anemone, another Japanese fern, painted fern. We have this dwarf Alberta spruce here, and we have some astilbe. That's the Vision series, and it's kind of past its prime now. And there's a little pulmonaria back here. So this garden bed was planted kind of as a solution because water would run off down this little sloped hill and kind of flood this little area. So I wanted to plant things that would help kind of soak up that water because it would collect right here. And I have a garden shed in front of which I've got these two hydrangea planters. And I bought these kind of planters as is, kind of secondhand from someone, and the hydrangeas were in there, so I don't know what variety they are, but they are doing fabulous. Let me give you a close-up of this gorgeous bloom. How gorgeous is this? And this one stays white. It's so lovely. I don't think, it's obviously a panicle variety, and I don't think it's a limelight. It doesn't look like a limelight to me, but I could be wrong. But I think it could be maybe a phantom, not really sure, just would be guessing. All right, and excuse the weeds. The sun is coming up and over the house, but I'm gonna back up here because I wanted to give kind of an overview of the backyard here. So here we have this little corner garden bed. We have some self-seeded lobelia, which I love. We have this beautiful hosta here. It was blooming these gorgeous lavender flowers, which I've now deadheaded. We have this plant, which I had thought was catmint, but I think it might be calamintha actually. And this self-seeds, and I love it. It's just very dainty, so the flowers come off very easily. But I just let it do its thing. It's kind of self-seeded, other parts of the garden, and I'm happy about that. This is phlox, glamour phlox. It could use some deadheading soon, but it's beautiful phlox, very vibrant, eye-catching, hummingbird attractor. And we've got some more Visions astilbe. This is another bobo hydrangea. I love bobos. And swinging around. I need to do some edging here and just, I've planted that thickly, and which is great because it's less weeding. All right, swinging around now. This garden bed has a limelight, or a little lime punch back back there. I've got some little lime punches, and you can see they start out this white color. The blooms are very large, and then they fade. Right now they're this blush pink, gorgeous blush pink, and they're gonna turn into a deep punch colored, deep color red, and that is a little lime punch. I love it. This is another dwarf Alberta spruce. I've got some penstemon, which I've deadheaded, and I thought I had lost all my Brunnera, and you can see some of them are coming back. So I really hope that these Brunnera survive, because it is August and they're still quite small. But I love Brunnera, they just don't seem to love my garden. Here is a different variety of astilbe, which is more of like an arching, graceful astilbe. It's bloomed in early summer, and it was white, but you can see it's faded to this wheat color now. Swinging around, I've got some double impatiens here, and some Browalia. They're not doing the best here. I just had to fill in those holes here in the garden for now. And then we have, this is the Invincible Ruby, which I rescued. It was a clearance plant, and you can see that it's surviving. It's got some nice new growth on it, new leaves coming. So, and new buds even, you can see the new buds. So I'm glad that I rescued that Invincible Ruby. Here's another little lime punch. We have our lady's mantle here. Some Jacob's ladder, another little lime punch. We have some pincushion flower, some more astilbe. This is the smoke bush I have, the Winecraft Black smoke bush. There's some lady's mantle, and this is our back garden here. You can see we have a line of trees in the back here. So we have a plum, an apple, a cherry, and a pear. And underneath these trees, I've made this garden bed here. So it runs along the back of the fence. So let's start in this corner here. So under this plum tree, nothing was really growing. So what I did is every rock that I dug out in this property, I would just have to put somewhere. So I ended up just putting them under this tree, and this developed into this little area. So yeah, every piece of rock has been dug from this property that's under there. I also have this bird feeder, bird bath I should say, and it developed a crack in there. So what I did is I turned it into a succulent planter. So I popped it under this tree, and you can see that we have some beautiful succulents in here. Also some moss is growing, which I think the moss just gives it such a pretty look as well. And you know, the leaves do fall in here. There's some weeds, but overall I'm very happy with this planter. This kind of plant ringing it is this Angelina sedum, which is easy to propagate and beautiful. I also love these hens and chicks. I don't know all of their names, but here's a rosette, which I think is an Echeveria. I believe that's what it's called. Just really happy. And there's like these little cute little hens and chicks. They're just so pretty. So I think it's a good way to reuse things in the garden. All right, so this is our plum tree, and with all the rocks that I collected from this property. This is my long border here, and the sun is just rising, so we'll try to get, hopefully we can get some good light in, but this is my back border, which is the tree line border. So this here is our apple tree, and you can see we've got some apples up there, and we have a lilac here and then one on the other side. The lilacs are doing okay. We also had some lilies here, which are bloomed out now, but gorgeous lilies. I showed them in a previous video. This is a fall blooming aster, I believe, so it doesn't do much in the season and then it blooms in fall. We've got some Dusty Miller that's self-seeded that I'm letting go because I lost most of my Dusty Miller. Back here, I do have a heuchera for that red interest, but you can't really see it because the aster is kind of in the way. You can see it a little bit more on this side here. And then stonecrop, I love. Stonecrop is such a workhorse in the garden as ground cover. It's not a water hog, so it does great. I divided my autumn joy sedum and popped some back here, so I'm hoping this kind of fills in. There's some Dusty Miller underneath here. Here is my black pearl heuchera, which I love. There's some coleus back here. That's the Proven Winners type that I popped back there just for a pop of red. I've got a salvia, some more of the stonecrop. And this is my original autumn joy sedum, which the stand is just gorgeous. You can see it is full of all these buds which are going to bloom in fall, and it's so easy to propagate, so I was able to move it there. I'm hoping to get like some symmetry going when this grows up. All of this is ground cover stonecrop that I put in around this cherry tree to suppress weeds. And then moving along, I've got another of the heuchera, which I believe is a mahogany monster. Another one of these fall blooming asters. And then here is our lilac, kind of symmetrical to the one we saw on the other side. So that is a long border. And then this is an area I've developed this year. Let me see if I can back into this shaded area. So this area is behind the shed, and it's kind of a shady area that's not seen very often. So it was full of junk, but what I've done is I've planted it up this year in the hopes of cleaning it up and making it a little bit more beautiful. So I'm just going to back up as much as I can here. Not a lot of space back here, but it's a triangle shaped garden bed, and it's mostly shade, although it does get some sun. And at the foot of the triangle I've put some Angelina sedum because that doesn't need a lot of water. It's evergreen and it's kind of hopefully will spread. I've got some citrus shock heucherella, one here and one here. A Royal Standard hosta, which I'm hoping will take over and get really big in this little spot and fill in. Silver gumdrop heuchera. Got a little impatient and some lamium, which looks like it's doing really well. Hopefully that will be a ground cover that will spread out. I've got this little hosta here, which is I believe it's an autumn frost, and it's blooming, so I think that's a good sign. There's my citrus shock heucherella, also with the bloom on it. Some more of the Angelina sedum. And then I've got some impatiens just for some color, which are doing good. And then over here is my hellebore and a fern behind it, another hosta, that's the Francis William. And then I've got my ground cover, ajuga. So this whole area under the trees, it's very difficult to weed. The ground is very compacted and hard, and it's hard to kind of water under here just because there are the tree roots and they suck up a lot of moisture. So I really want a lot of ground covers just to kind of suppress the weeds. So the ajuga, the stonecrop, it's really doing a job here. All right, and because of the sun, I think we'll do the long border next. All right, so this is the long border. This used to be a fence here from our neighbors, but the fence kind of blew down in a windstorm, and we haven't had a chance to put it back up yet because, as you can see, our neighbors also have a garden down here. And to fix this wall, we would have to go into their garden, and it's all planted up, so obviously we have to kind of wait for that till better timing. But anyways, so what we have here is I put some rose campion here. It didn't bloom, but the basil floret is there, so I'm sure that's gonna take off. That'll be a nice vibrant color there. We have the black pearl heuchera, this stand of lavender, which is just loving its life. It's huge, humongous. And there was a rose back there, which looks like it didn't make it this winter, unfortunately. So you can see this was a double delight, and it was there for many years, but didn't make it through the last winter. So we'll have to replace that, take that out, put something else there. We have some repetition, so you'll see the rose campion kind of dotted throughout. This is a echinacea coneflower. I think it's the Cheyenne Sky. This is a rose that I thought had died this winter, and I'm glad I left it because you can see all this new growth is coming out. And I have no idea if this is a grafted rose or not, but that new growth could be coming from below the graft. I'm not sure, so I'm waiting to see what this rose turns out to be. There's no blooms on it, no buds, so I think I might have to wait till next year to see what it is. But it's very interesting because you can see the rose looks like it's totally died, and then it shot this new growth out. So it's got a strong will to survive. I'm just not sure if I want to keep that because I don't know what type of rose it is. This is a rescue plant, the pink potion veronica that I put in this year. I've got a lot of catmint dotted throughout. This is verbena that I put in this year. So I finally got some verbena in my garden. Long overdue. So beautiful. I have some Amsonia back here. I've got more of the rose campion. And here I have, in this tomato cage, I had thought, well actually, I have a dahlia planted here, and I'm very encouraged to see this bud. And in addition to the dahlia, I've got this tomato. So this tomato hopefully will produce some fruit. This is my Midnight Wine Shine Weigela, which I'm not too impressed with, and I believe Proven Winners has discontinued it. So I might not leave that in the garden because I was very unimpressed with its blooms. It barely bloomed, like almost no blooms whatsoever, and it's in a prime spot. It's got lots of sun. And yeah, I just haven't been too happy with that. So I might have to relocate that or give it away or something, but I wanted to give it a nice chance. Here I have more of the Cheyenne Sky echinacea or coneflower. Gorgeous and vibrant. Here I've got another tomato. I've just put tomatoes kind of throughout. All of my calendula self-seed prolifically. This is the Gold Heart Orange variety, and it produces so many seeds, so I just let that kind of go where it wants because I believe it's good for the tomatoes. Just is like kind of a trap plant. And I do have a tomato on this trellis. It's just my tomatoes not doing that great this year for some reason. I've got some of these white plants are 3 Gara, so they are white Gara, and they're looking really great. I'm very happy with them. I just put them in this year in the spring. Got some Monarda here. This is the Pardon My Cherise. There's a catmint here. And what I've done is I put this trellis against this little pillar. I was trying to kind of disguise it a little bit, and I put this Thunbergia or black-eyed Susan vine on here, and it was a pink one. So you can see how pretty those flowers are. But I heard these plants are very prolific, and I was expecting it to kind of take over and cover this trellis, but you can see it hasn't really done that yet. And again, like we are in August, the first week of August, so I was expecting it to perform a little bit better, but that's okay. Here I have another tomato plant, and there's a bobo back there. Lots of self-seeded calendula. Got 3 bobos here in this triangle formation, and on this trellis, this rose here is apparently it's supposed to be a Zephyrine Druin. I don't know if it is. It comes out a lot more red than pink, but now that it's kind of, the blooms kind of fade more into this pink, so maybe it is a Zephyrine Druin. Not really sure. Anyways, that one is looking nice and vibrant. Really goes well with the bobos, offsets it. Got some more catmint. And then this here is my edible container here. So this little box, it has strawberries in it. And it seems to me strawberries are a waste of space because nobody eats them here or picks them. And by the time we get to them, they're always either gone or rotting, or I think this whole season I picked 3 strawberries. So I think this is kind of just needs to be give up on the strawberries and revamp it. All right, going along, we have this butterfly bush. Butterfly bush have now been deemed invasive in my area, and I can see why. This one has self-seeded itself here, and we did have one of this variety that I took out, but I guess it knew it was on its last days and it decided to self-seed itself here. It is gorgeous though, you have to admit. Look at this gorgeous bloom. It's a big plant, it's taking up quite a bit of real estate, you can see, but the blooms are just gorgeous. So anyways, I'm gonna leave it this year. It obviously has a will to survive, and it's starting to bloom. It's gonna look gorgeous when it's in full-fledged bloom. And like I said, I had planted a bunch of Puxter Blue dwarf butterfly bushes that are sterile from Proven Winners, and none of mine came back. So very disappointing, because I had planted so many of them and it's quite an investment, and that was all for naught. All right, and this garden bed is kind of, I've got some Amsonia back there. It's out of bloom right now. There's some Monarda, it's out of bloom. There's some baby Kim lilac in here as well. This is a 3-sided trellis, which is just consumed with this Sweet Summer Love clematis from Proven Winners. It's kind of a insane plant because you can see how massive it is. Like, it's obviously happy. I don't think the trellis was actually big enough for it. It's probably better going over a wall or something. But I bought it because it is supposed to be a fragrant clematis. But I feel like it doesn't scent the area. You kind of just have to, you know, if you want to smell it, you can put your nose in it and then you get the scent. And this is my work in progress corner because I had planted a limelight prime. There's one of my dead dwarf butterfly bushes. Here's another. So gonna have to dig those two out and replace them, but yeah, my plan was to have like a trio of plants here and the 3 shrubs, and only one survived, so really not impressed with the Puxter Blue butterfly bushes. It's planted ahead of it. We have some peonies, and then we have a clematis here which hasn't bloomed, but it's been hanging on, so I'm just gonna let it hopefully survive the winter, and then maybe next year it'll bloom. I love these pincushion flower. I think this is a butterfly blue pincushion flower. And we have some allium, a stand of echinacea. I think this might be white swan. Could be powwow white, not really sure. This is a little baby Kim lilac. I planted the echinacea because they bloom so prolifically, they look good, and they don't need a lot of water. They're water-wise. And moving along, so we had planted 2 dahlias here on the fence. So far, no signs of blooms. That's the Castle Dry variety. Got some more peonies. I have this clematis, which I love. This is Viva Polonia. Just like how it just kind of is so vigorous and goes all the way to the top of the fence. Here we go, another dwarf butterfly bush, Puxter Blue, that didn't survive. So, and another one. Very disappointed. So I left them just because I was hoping that maybe they would come back, but no such luck. Here is my leaning lilac tree on standard, underplanted with a vagabond clematis covering its trunk there. Here are some gorgeous lilies, which smell beautiful. So you can see this is kind of a shaded area, and we have, get out of the sun here. So we have kind of a variety of plantings. We have a stilby, peonies, and then as we go along, a little bit of pincushion flower, but an azalea, some lady's mantle, which needs to be cut back, a stilby, hosta. I've got some ground cover in here, some ajuga. It's kind of a neglected area, to be honest. And on this side, we have our hydrangea bed, which is mostly hydrangeas, but also have some underplantings in here as well. We have some astilbe and peonies. This is a peacock hydrangea, which hasn't got any buds on it yet, but you can see it has beautiful dark stems. Peonies were blooming in June, and early June were beautiful. I believe this is a Firelight Tidbit. Beautiful hydrangea. Turns this beautiful berry color. You can see the Hydrangea is doing its job, covering the ground, preventing weeds. I believe this here is a limetta, if I'm not mistaken. And then right in the corner we have a little lime. And the little lime also has a tinge of pink to it. All right, this is the back side of this pillar. Let me show you the front side. It is covered with a sweet autumn clematis. So you can see the sweet autumn clematis is kind of going all the way up this pillar. I'm just trying to keep the sun out. All the way to the top, it's made it, and it blooms in September. So next month we should see some blooms on there. But it's been working hard all summer, making its way all the way up to the top, which was my goal this year, was to get it all the way to that second story. We have some more of that glamour phlox here. It's a nice little stand of that. And swinging back, we've got our center garden bed, which is dominated by the Gertrude Jekyll rose, which has thrown out some new blooms. It's been deadheaded. It's gone through its first flush, which was glorious, as well as a second flush. So this is just a bonus flush really, but you can see I've been deadheading it. So I've got all these new buds forming, which is great. And this is the beautiful flowers. It's a little bit smaller than the first flush, but still lovely. This garden bed has the Missouri rose, hydrangea that I have in the front garden. No blooms yet, but it was transplanted this year, so give it a chance. Got some mystic blue salvia, which I'm hoping will return. It's just getting established. It was planted as really small plants, but the good news is in addition to the bloom stalk, I'm getting some new buds forming. So I'm hoping that it branches out and fills in. And if I turn you around towards the back side, you can see my Missouri hydrangea in the back is doing much better. It has this gorgeous bloom on it. Is that not a stunning hydrangea? And this backside gets way less sun, so I'm wondering if maybe that's the reason the front one is not doing as well. Maybe it just needs much less sun. And there's a clematis growing throughout the back and into my Gertrude Jekyll rose. It's out of bloom now. It's a Guernsey cream, so it blooms early spring before the blooms of the Gertrude Jekyll show up. This is my sky blue lobelia from Proven Winners, or Laguna Blue Sky. I love that plant. I've got one on this side and one on the other side. I've got also pink cashmere superbena, which is doing okay, not the best. You can see there's a couple blooms on there, but I was just expecting more from that, but it might be because it just might not be getting enough sun here. So I'm hoping to get kind of a thick metal edge to put around this garden bed, because what happens is when I water, the water kind of goes, it's a little bit sloped. This is like a very wet area, so I kind of plant it a little bit high. So the water slopes and it runs away from the plants to the edge, which is not what I want. So I'm hoping I can solve that problem by putting kind of like a metal edging around here that's pretty deep. That'll help prevent the grass from going in there, but will also allow me to kind of put compost in as mulch and not worry about that kind of bleeding out or ending up encouraging grass to grow in. That's the hope anyways, but another project for the list. And then this little bed back here, it's in full sun. I've got two limettas which were looking fabulous for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. They've now kind of turned this brown. especially this one has kind of got that cauliflower browned out look. So I have to come here and do some deadheading, but the amount of blooms versus in relation to the time of blooms, it just gave me weeks and weeks of beautiful color. So totally worth it. Don't mind deadheading. It's not a problem at all, and totally worth planting these. These are limetas and just gorgeous, gorgeous blooms. I've got a super tunia there. This is my stand of banana cream daisy, which also needs deadheading. I've got some phlox in here, as well as some Amsonia. You can see the phlox was transplanted from my other phlox. It was a baby, so it's a lot smaller, but it's getting there. And then back here, I've got a Miss Sayori hydrangea as well, which is blooming. The bloom on this one is a little bit more of a lavender and not a two-toned, which is very interesting. But anyways, this is another garden that I've been planning on working on, but just haven't gotten around to. There's never enough hours in the day, is there? So that is an overview of the back garden. And didn't go too long, hopefully. I'm trying to keep this video short, but if you have any questions, please do put those in the comments. And yeah, I'm nowhere close to being a professional gardener, but I'm really just taking these videos to kind of document the progress of the garden throughout the summer, so I can look back, especially in the winter months, and kind of plan on what I need to revamp, what I need to change and do differently. And for example, next year I don't know if I'm going to do the impatiens, because I had put impatiens in as plugs and they just didn't grow and fill in the way I thought they would. So I think next year what I'll do is I'll do what I had done last year, which is get the hanging baskets of impatiens and plop the whole thing in, which is much more instant impact and much more dramatic, instead of doing these plugs. So thank you for joining me on this garden tour, and hopefully it encourages you if you've got lots of weeds like I do, and you have lots of work to do in the garden, but you're enjoying it, then you're my kind of gardener. Have a great day.